Today, we're diving into the story of a really pivotal figure in Indian history, Chaolung Sukapha. This is the man who founded a kingdom in Assam that lasted for an incredible 600 years. But here's the thing, his legacy is now, believe it or not, at the center of a pretty heated modern debate.
And this is where the story gets a very 21st century twist. Thanks to current geopolitical tensions, a provocative question has popped up. Was this celebrated founder actually a foreign invader from China? That's the complex and honestly fascinating question we're going to unpack today.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the modern controversy itself. Then we're going to trace Sukapha's epic journey, see exactly how he built his kingdom, look at its incredible 600-year legacy, and then finally, we'll try to understand his true role as the architect of Assam.
All right, first up, founder or invader? Let's dig into how a figure who has been revered for centuries suddenly became so controversial.
Context is everything here. As tensions have flared up on the India-China border, some people have pointed to Sukapha's origins. He came from a region in what is now modern-day Yunnan, China, and used that to label him a Chinese invader. This has kicked off a really fierce debate, especially in Assam, where he's seen as, well, the father of the land.
So to really understand who Sukapha was, we have to go back, way back. We need to trace his absolutely epic journey all the way from his home in the kingdom of Mong Mao to the Brahmaputra Valley.
So what made him leave in the first place? Well, Sukapha was actually the heir to the throne, but then the king had a son of his own, which meant Sukapha's claim was suddenly gone. Legend has it his grandmother gave him this pretty stark advice, basically telling him, hey, this jungle ain't big enough for two tigers, go find your own kingdom. And that is exactly what he set out to do.
So in 1215, he sets out. And listen, this was no small trip. He left with about 9,000 followers, we're talking nobles, soldiers, their families, plus horses and elephants for 13 long years. They trekked through the incredibly tough Patkai mountain ranges. It was a brutal, dangerous journey. They finally arrived in the Brahmaputra Valley in December of 1228.
But arriving was just the beginning. Now he had to actually build a nation. And this is where we see Sukapha's real genius, as he creates this new kingdom with a really unique blueprint for a multi-ethnic state.
In Assam, you almost never hear him called just Sukapha. He's Chaolung Sukapha. Chaolung means great lord, and it's this title of respect that shows just how deeply he's revered. Right away, that tells you something. He's remembered not as some conqueror, but as a respected founder.
So how did he earn a title like that? Well, his whole approach was the total opposite of a typical invader. He built alliances, befriending local communities instead of just rolling over them. He encouraged his people to intermarry with the locals, and even led by example, marrying the daughters of local chiefs himself to literally weave his people into the local fabric. And get this, he didn't force his language or his religion on anyone. Instead, his people adopted the local customs. On top of all that, he shared valuable technology, like new methods for wet rice cultivation, which brought a whole new level of prosperity to the region.
This whole process was so successful that it actually got its own name, Ahomization. But it wasn't about forcing people to become Ahom. It was more like an open invitation. Local communities who saw the benefits of their methods of farming and government were welcomed and integrated. This was the absolute key to creating a stable, multi-ethnic society that would go on to last for centuries.
Okay, so let's go back to that first big question. Let's just put it side by side. An invader shows up and plunders wealth. Sukapha introduced new farming techniques that created wealth. An invader imposes their culture. Sukapha's people assimilated into the local culture. An invader rules by force. Sukapha ruled through alliances and marriage. The historical record is pretty clear. His actions are those of a nation builder, not a conqueror.
And the proof, as they say, is in the pudding. The results of this really unique approach are clear when you look at the incredible 600-year legacy of the Ahom kingdom he founded.
Just think about that number for a second. 600 years, from 1228 all the way to 1826. To put that in perspective, the famous Mughal Empire, which we all know about, lasted about 330 years. The sheer longevity of the Ahom kingdom is just a massive testament to the strong foundation that Sukapha built.
And we're not talking about some small, quiet kingdom here. This was a sophisticated powerhouse. The Ahoms famously fought off repeated Mughal invasions, which is no small feat. They developed a unique administrative system, a kind of public service called the Pike system, and they were meticulous record keepers, maintaining these amazing historical chronicles called Buranjis. In fact, these chronicles are so detailed, they're the main reason we know so much about them today. Sukapha set up their first capital at Charideo in 1253, and it became the heart of their rule for centuries.
And his legacy isn't just something you read about in history books. It is a living, breathing part of the culture. Every single year, on December 2nd, the state of Assam celebrates Assam Divas, which is Assam Day. It marks the exact date of Sukapha's arrival back in 1228, honoring him as the unifier and founder of their home.
So let's bring all this together. It's time to finally answer that question we started with. Was Sukapha truly the architect of Greater Assam?
I think you can really summarize his entire contribution in 5 key pillars. He was the unifier, bringing all these scattered tribes together into one group. He was the assimilator, choosing to integrate cultures rather than dominate them. He was the statesman, using diplomacy and marriage instead of just brute force. He was the innovator, bringing new tech that created prosperity. And, of course, he was the founder of a kingdom whose resilience is just about unmatched in Indian history.
So when you look at all the overwhelming historical evidence, what he did, how he did it, and what it led to, the consensus among historians is crystal clear. Chaolung Sukapha was not an invader. He was the architect of what is known in Assam as Bor Assam, Greater Assam.
And this whole story kind of brings us to a final thought. The controversy around Sukapha really shows how easily historical figures can be twisted and reframed to fit a modern political agenda. It leaves us with a really critical question. How does the story of our past change when we look at it through the lens of our present? It's a powerful reminder that to really understand history, we need to look not just at where someone came from, but more importantly at what they did and what they built. Thanks for tuning in.